how we can train that into ourselves, how we can cultivate that. So today, one of our company investors came and gave a talk to our whole company. And this guy's been pretty successful. He's helped build a lot of companies. And he was able to go with the Jeff Bezos's rocket up into space. And he gave this story of what it was like to go through all the training and then this extreme force of going up into space. And then they had 3.5 minutes of weightlessness where they could just float, or when they looked outside the window, they could see the whole world and they could see half the world and the curvature of the earth. And while they were in that weightlessness, how effortless everything was. If he pushed off one side of the rocket, he would just float over to the other side, and with exactly the same amount of force, he'd land on the other side. And I thought this was a really wonderful metaphor for ways that we can train our mind. So you can imagine right now, here we are, we see inside the temple. But if we were to fly up 10 meters, instead of being in amongst the people, we'd be looking down on the temple. You could imagine being on a busy street in the city, and you're in amongst all the noise. If you fly up just a little bit, the whole view of the street looks different and feels different. If you fly up a little bit further, you can see the whole city, and your whole perspective changes and how it feels changes. Maybe you've been up on a tall building or been in a plane and you've seen that shift in perspective. You could imagine going up even further into a rocket ship, even vaster perspective. And I want to think about how that metaphor applies to ourselves. I talked about being on a busy street and all the activity. And you could think about that as a metaphor for an untrained mind. Like there's just a whole bunch of things going on. You're reacting to this thought and expectations you put on yourself and demands you put on yourself. There's just like this hustle and bustle in the mind. But if you practice observing the mind instead of being in the mind, it's like you raise up out of all of that and get into a point where you're just looking at it. It's a different perspective on yourself. And the more you're able to detach from that hustle and bustle, the more grand your perspective is, the more beautiful it is. And then he said, when he got up into space in the rocket, it was weightlessness, effortlessness. So you could think of, let's say someone has got a whole bunch of pressure on themselves, heaviness and weight. And if they are trying to cultivate some change, it's like it's hard work. But if you can take that up into space, this feeling of effortlessness, even if you have something really heavy, you just push and it moves. And so I want you to think about being able to cultivate a state of mind where if you wanted to practice some strength or feel a greater sense of ease or change some habit of your own, or any kind of inner work, your mind would just, wherever you thought to go, whatever you thought to feel or practice, would be effortless. For those of you who are new to meditation, I hope that those metaphors you could relate to in some ways. And for those of you who've been meditating a lot, you can think of all of the activity as of the mind, especially when you're not mindfully observing it. It's kind of pulling your attention around, and you also have attachments to it. Like if I tell you total peace, total tranquility, some of you can just be in total peace. But for most of us, there's this other stuff that's not peace that kind of like holds us in those feelings. And we have to focus on peace and breathe into tranquility for a while to detach ourselves from that other stuff and to become more peaceful. And what I wanted to propose today is that as we sit to meditate, we just feel like we're letting that all go. We're going into this space of effortlessness. So that if I then talk about peace, you can just be free to go into peace. Or if someone shares an inspirational idea of a way of being, you just allow yourself to love that and be that. There's no internal attachment to any expectations or old habits. You're just free. In the video footage of everyone in the rocket ship spinning around and cheering with wild celebration, there was one person who was just stuck to the window and just looking through it to the earth beneath. And I was trying to imagine the awe or whatever they were feeling or experiencing. Can we do that for a moment? Just imagine you were in a spaceship looking down at the planet, how big it would look. You've just been shot up into space. It's like this wildly intense experience. And then you're looking down at everything. And you know in a few minutes, you're going to drop back down into that world. But right now, you're just able to look across the whole thing. And I'm pretty sure the experience being there is more awe-inspiring than what most of our imaginations could have just done. And I was thinking, I can look at a photo of the Earth. Satellites have taken those photos. But the experience that they had while actually there is probably like an entirely different league of power and sensation. And I started thinking about when you're in deep meditation and when you freed your mind from all of the gravity and you're in this like weightlessness, how beautiful it can be. If I say to you right now, imagine perfect understanding of all beings and compassion for everyone and a world where everyone's united and every thought is chosen to be bliss. They might have sounded like a nice idea. It might have sounded a little inspiring. It might have sounded just far out and weird and silly. I mean, if you meditated a lot, it might have been like, yeah, that's great. But when you're in deep meditation, or when you have allowed yourself to be fully immersed, then ideas like that are able to just captivate you and transform you. It's the effortlessness. I push myself towards infinite compassion. I can just fly into it. The awe-inspiringness. So meditating ourselves into mental freedom, it's just so wonderful. It gives us this lightness, this ease. It makes things more beautiful and more powerful. So I wanted to spend some of today practicing mindfulness, practicing, actually not just practicing awareness, which is what mindfulness means for those of you who newer here, but also practicing what it is to let go of that gravity, to be able to let the whole mental activity become still and move into that space of weightless consciousness. So I hope you notice in the 30 seconds just then, where I was quiet, that your mind was doing things. I don't know what your mind was doing, but just take a moment to remember what you did in that quiet. And then notice what it was like to remember it. And then notice what your mind is doing right now. And then let yourself think about, throughout the day, all the activity that happens in your consciousness. All the thoughts you have, all the feelings you have, any pressures or expectations that you put upon yourself. All the conversations you have with others, and all the thoughts you have as you're talking with them, and all the ways you react. Now imagine if you were to take that whole day and bring a sense of ease to every one of those thoughts, a sense of lightness, a sense of peace. So we're going to move into some stillness meditation. My eyes have already started getting heavy as I started to talk more meditatively. So if you start to notice your eyes getting heavy, it's alright, let them close whenever you want. And you might have noticed that my voice has slowed down a little. Maybe I'm hoping there's more relaxing or peaceful tones in my voice. Well, maybe not hoping, but I'm imagining and feeling peaceful tones into my voice. And so while you watch your mind, you can imagine your consciousness becoming more soothing, your inner voice becoming slower and more peaceful. If your eyes are still open, I invite you to close them. And we'll be noticing our consciousness. Notice your mind, notice your feeling. And then have some time in just breathing peaceful breath. Imagine your whole mind is still. Everything's peaceful. And then you can notice your mind again and enjoy the peace that you made. And then you can go back into the peaceful breathing and go even more into peace, to more weightlessness. Like each moment that you breathe and feel your mind becoming still is like going up in the rocket ship. And the further you go, the more weightless you become. The greater this feeling of ease. And just letting yourself enjoy the times that you focus on the breath, imagining beautiful peace, letting your focus be in the breath, letting yourself feel what it is to breathe peacefully. And then any times that you notice your consciousness, just enjoy how amazing your consciousness is. In the start of the next breath, you decide to put all of your attention in the breath, like powering the rocket ship. Lifting up your consciousness. lifting up your consciousness. Any thoughts, any feelings, any habits or ideas, just becoming tiny. Your consciousness raises up in perspective, becomes full of ease, weightlessness. And watch as you guide your own meditation, being beautifully kind down. All of your focus, just making the breath more peaceful, more still. As we just let each breath feel more easeful, you can imagine what it'd be like as you leave the Earth's atmosphere in the spaceship, and it begins to feel weightless. Each breath you take, let it have more of that weightless. And imagine if your experience of yourself was always from this place of ease, lightness, effortless. And just letting your attention go between each breath being more peaceful, more still. You notice any activity in the consciousness. Just let the breathing be more free. Imagine a breath that's more pure, just conscious. And you can move between having those breaths and then imagining taking the peace and ease to someone you love, or taking this peace and ease to something you think about a lot, or taking this peace and ease into what you're like in the morning or the evening or somewhere. So just letting your attention go between these more peaceful, more spacious, effortless breaths, and then taking those beautiful feelings to whoever or wherever you like. Perhaps you'd like to imagine some big part of your life. Maybe it's something you've been working on, or maybe it's uh, the relationship that takes the most of your time. Like, maybe it's something in yourself. And just let that part of you float into weightlessness, effortlessness. Let it be filled with ease and beauty. You could think of the different things you normally think about or feel about this part of you or this part of your life. And just imagine having those thoughts in a way that's totally free, happy, light, creative. Bit by bit, every part of you is becoming that ease, joy, that light. And if we continue with this metaphor of this meditation being like a trip to space, we're starting to go back down into our body, starting to think of all the different parts of your life and all the different people. But you're going to bring beautiful kindness, beautiful ease, awareness and bliss into every part of you. You can imagine in the day-to-day living when there's things happening and stuff going on and things and people to react to. Right now, as you just give yourself a moment to practice, that you'll respond with ease, elegance, peace. You'll take the time to find the right words, to find the right feeling. Moving through your day with this feeling of floating and lightness. And then you can imagine the spaceship landing. Back down on Earth, you feel the cushion beneath you. You feel the temple that you're in, and the computer or VR headset in front of you. When you're ready, you decide you're going to keep watching your mind and you're going to keep this sense of lightness and ease as you open the eye. When you start to think different things, just keeping that sense of peace that you've felt. When you're ready, you just see the people here in the temple. Take a moment to wish for them. The peace that they cultivated will keep becoming more beautiful. Maybe they had some loving, kind feeling. Maybe they had some inner transformations or insights. And in about a minute, we're going to open it up to discuss the experience we just had. I'll just give you a minute to think about how you want to listen to each other, how you want to be there for each other, or anything that you'd like to share. Whether it's as simple as trying to describe a nice feeling, or sharing how your mind or your consciousness moved, what you observed, or maybe you had a really interesting thought, or an insight, or a transformative moment. Let's just all breathe for a moment. Just think about, feel into what you'd like to share in this sharing time. Monster, how was the meditation for you?
It was really good. I kind of I kind of diverted though from the space metaphor, uh, because you mentioned Earth being really big, kind of looking down at it. So what I ended up doing was thinking about, and it's kind of corny, but uh, a lot of Russians are getting ready to possibly attack Ukraine, and I'm just sitting and my feet are touching the ground. So I was imagining like maybe all the soldiers feet are actually like making contact with the same earth as, at the same time as me right now. And so as I was getting very relaxed, I was thinking of, sending those that relaxation feelings, through my feet to the same earth to them, and like absorbing their maybe arrogance or readiness to kill people, and like those feelings that they must have pent up in them, if they're actually going to go to war. So I kind of diverged uh, a lot, but it was,
Actually, that was not, I wasn't thinking about Russia and war, but the
yeah,
whole intention was for you to get into this space of beautiful meditation and then to do with that what arose within you. So it's
yeah,
totally,
and I just
totally
I
great.
like sent it to them, yeah, like sending it that way,
Sounds like you had a really
maybe,
hard time trying to focus.
yeah, I my mind does wander quite a bit, so usually my rule with meditation is if I
I
wander,
would consider getting medicated, maybe for ADHD, or at least speaking to your doctor about something like that, because I feel like that can
Actually,
help you quite
I
a bit.
think it's very normal for people to be inspired in meditation or to have uh,
Oh,
a,
okay.
a
I thought we were just supposed to
uh,
sit here.
I mean, absolutely. If you spent the whole time just cultivating peace inside yourself, that could be a wonderful outcome of this. But I'm guessing Monster has, in the last week or so, been looking at the news or thinking about that. And if this peace that we went into in meditation was then able to bring peace to him in regards to the world situation, then I think that his mind did a beautiful thing for himself.
True, you have a
Mm.
lot of tools at your disposal. Never forget that you have a place here too.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Um,
Mm.
so I used to really feel that if we were meditating and sending peace to people, that it was actually changing things. These days, I'm not so sure. I know it
Yeah, it
transforms
depends on the
inside you.
person.
Oh no, I'm certain that it transformed things inside Monster. He had a greater
Yeah,
feeling of peace or love towards them. But I wonder,
Yeah, I
yeah,
guess the
I mean, it,
initial reaction sometimes it could be either a jerk or a hug.
I think I'm
yeah,
trying to make a different point. Um,
Okay.
so, um, I don't know how many people are out there preparing for battle. And it'd be great if meditating and sending them peace or patience or love could transform all of them. These days, I like to also ask myself the question, if I'm motivated to send them love, how could I actually do it? Is there anything I could actually do that could reach some of those people or could have an impact?
I wish
And,
the US
you
and
know,
Russia would just settle it playing CSGO tournament.
perhaps that's something you could write to your member of Congress and suggest them. Maybe some of them will
Oh
get
my god.
behind it.
Imagine. That would be a long paper to write. I would need like
Mm.
100K stamps. I don't know. Does anyone want to sign?
Well,
Mm.
what can I just add? So the meditation I did is actually called Tonglen, which is giving and taking. And it's not that you're actually believing you change the world through sending them peace and all that kind of stuff, but it's at least in Mahayana Buddhism, it's more an exercise of being reducing like selfish feelings, uh, giving like you're giving out to people. Like I don't have a billion dollars to give away, but you kind of learn to kind of be selfless and uh, but yeah, I'm not under any like illusion that I can just think away world problems. If that were, I'd do it
Yeah,
every
no,
day
I see
nonstop.
that in you where you're highly intelligent and you're trying to figure out problems that you feel if you had just a little bit more inkling you could solve, I'd imagine. But the world's like a really big place and it's very complicated, so I don't blame you on like just dreaming that hero lifestyle. Like maybe you have a part to play too in all of this. I wouldn't doubt it otherwise. You have a great gift about you.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, I'd like to open up for other people to share what their meditation is like. And let's just allow ourselves to like feel and hear and appreciate what each person experienced. Lou, would you like to experience your meditation? And would you like to share something from your time sitting?
I spent a lot of it just checking emails, but you know what I mean? Maybe I feel like I'm on a right path as of lately, and then excuse me for initially mentioning, I guess, medication at all, because I guess that's what recently came about my day too. So I guess I was hoping to eventually kind of make that distinction. However, I guess it got lost with the wind, huh? Maybe if a thought
Mm,
takes longer than the wind to blow, it's meant for another August season's coming.
well, I hope
When you're
that
better prepared.
any of the time that you did meditate was nice. And if you started meditating and then your mind went to the emails and then you did the emails, um, I hope you can imagine how next time you might decide to just give yourself a little bit more time in the meditation, a little bit more time empowering your consciousness.
I
Would
like to
anyone
think
else
about
like?
how, oh, I'm sorry, how the whistling or the the flute that's being played here is done in a meditative state.
How about we all just take a few breaths and just listen to the flute and just go back into that peace and stillness. And then whoever then feels inspired to share, and then share. So whoever has an experience on their mind, please, the floor is yours.
If not, I have another good one.
Really,
I'd like to
please,
keep it
Tony.
around experience from the meditation. Yeah, Tony, please.
I would love to hear Tony.
yeah. Hello. I really appreciate meditation. I haven't meditated in a while, probably 2 weeks ago, a week ago when I was last. I think life's been pretty hectic since then, so this is the first time that I've had some semblance of peace in my brain in like at least 3-4 days, which has been really nice. And I mean, it wasn't amazing. Like I was still thinking of some different work things, but even my body and my mind now feel just a lot more calm. So that was good. And I
I'm
wanted to
glad you
point
found
to
the
earlier
inspiration to
discussion,
come
I think,
here.
Yeah. So out on my so that was I checked my calendar. I think small acts can have a really big impact, even if not in the immediate, and in some maybe in an impression you leave someone or something like that. Even if you aren't someone who has a ton of resources or power.
You mentioned it's been quite busy and hectic. Before you arrived, I was telling people that today at work we had one of our VCs come and give a presentation to the whole company. And he told the story of how he had bought a ticket on one of Jeff Bezos' spaceships and gone up into space. True story. We had the video footage. Like, this is not a metaphor. He actually did it. And then I was saying how the meditation is like this journey up into space, getting into this place of weightlessness and ease. And you've been so busy, but just stepping back into meditation, you can see how beautiful it is. And my company had actually asked me to do a 5 or 10 minute wellness session. So I talked about how we can stop and breathe and observe our mind. And the actual meditation we did was only a few minutes. But afterwards, so many people wrote to me and they said, so good to have a few minutes of peace in amongst the workday. So I hope that I can remind you, in amongst all this busyness, just to give yourself 5 minutes here to really have beautiful breath, and just set yourself up that the next few hours is carried with peace and awesomeness. And then maybe you'll give yourself another 5 minutes to just breathe. And I'm looking forward after this session to hear how your adventures recently have been going. So thanks for sharing.
I think I will, and I want to try morning meditation, but unfortunately, I do have to go. I do have to run off in 5 minutes, but we'll talk.
Thank you so much for sharing and giving us that chance to kind of see through your lens. Yeah.
Would anyone else like to
You have a great day.
share or ask anything? It might not necessarily be just your experience from the meditation. Maybe you, like Monster, had the meditation take them some other part of their life. Or maybe you have a question. Yeah. Maybe there was... Yeah?
I feel a lot of people discuss disruption at the same way they would discuss like, or let me rephrase this. I feel like disruption is often misplaced as a negative trait, whereas that's kind of what transistors do. They get disrupted in their charge, and then they're able to go on to their own separate paths with that jolt of energy. I feel it's
There's
great to
definitely
be
a
able to
time and a
share
place.
energy and experiences with each other. Yeah, there's definitely a time and a place too. So I guess that was my point in mentioning all that. That there is always a time and place for jokes and shenanigans. Maybe it's not in the temple.
One thing I like to do after the meditation is try to keep the conversation tied to the meditation, just for a little while people are still in the meditative state, they can more fully feel the experience that each other was sharing. But I think temples should be about cultivating massive joy. So yeah, laughter and joy, I definitely would like that here. Just the straight after the meditation is when I try to keep it to be about the experience people had in the meditation. So I want to invite again, has anyone got something from the meditation they'd like to share of their experience or any questions? Rico, we'd love to hear. Mm. Thanks. So you said that
That's like
perhaps
using
the
ninja replacement technique.
um Creek said that perhaps the recording might not have captured what he said. So let me try to reiterate. That you were definitely saying you appreciated the metaphor and how the meditation was guided, and that you appreciated the pauses. So I hope that for everybody here, that the pauses were good for you, not too long that you weren't sure how to keep the meditation going, but also long enough that you were able to go deeper into that peace and effortlessness. And Rick also shared that he noticed any time that he gets impatient with things, he wants to leave somewhere, he just becomes really aware of the time. And I'm guessing that people are like, "Oh, look at the time, I have to go." So, um, if if that's a regular thing that people do as an excuse to leave, then when you're feeling impatient, your mind kind of looks for that, being ready, like, how do I get out of here? And so you notice this awareness of time, but then can you remind me, did you then say that you saw how you would change that relationship, or like, what did you say you'd do with that insight? Hmm. Okay, so similar to when you notice the time is something that you kind of go to when you want to leave a situation or leave something. You've also noticed in meditation, when you start imagining things or visualizing things, is when it's like something you use for your mind to then wander and go away. Hmm. Um, there's many
Yeah, it
ways
sounds
we
like
could
you're able to think about grapes when you think about the time, if you needed to.
um, well, I hope that if you notice that visual looking for the time is tied with this feeling of impatience, that perhaps you can then envisage, okay, well, next time I notice I'm thinking about the time, how will I become more impatient or more beautifully decisive? And then similarly with meditation, if visualizing is a way for you to leave single pointed concentration, you could think of how your visualizations would then point to your nose or be laser beams into the light or something that would bring you back to single pointed meditation. Or
It definitely
when
swells the breath. It gives you that inch right before you let a breath pass. But I guess if you're focused on time, you're not really concerned about the little things like that. The full enjoyment of a breath.
but quick, I also want to say that Monster was saying his meditation took him to a totally different topic, and maybe that was wonderful for him. So also sometimes if your meditations become visualizations, that can be great too. Got a poke? Do I see that we're going to share something?
Hmm. Hmm. Oh no, I just do this.
Okay.
Anyway.
Carbonez, is there anything you'd like to share from the session?
I feel like today there's a lot of distractions, and I can understand why Monster is feeling distracted about the current geopolitical situations happening in the world right now. I think it's on a lot of people's heads because it's, a very stressful situation to know that possibly there might be a war that could be very dangerous for the world peace and for, stability in the world. So it can make it hard for people then to stay focused and things like meditation if there's like pressing things like that on people's minds. And I don't think it has anything to do with like AHT or anything like that. I just think that, sometimes it's hard for people to stay focused when there's a lot of stress happening. But also though, even if that's the case, it's good to try because it's a practice. It's about practicing, and the more we practice, the better we can get it. Not being, distracted by those stressful things. But it's not necessarily that it's easy because sometimes there's very stressful things happening. So it's understandable that sometimes people might be thinking about those things when they're meditating or trying to meditate.
I think community would represent a good counter argument to that. I would say that when you're feeling stressed out, you should find it in you to be able to contact at least one of your 5 closest friends. And if that's an issue too, don't worry. VRChat is an awesome place to make friends.
Yeah, definitely reaching out to people can be helpful. And in terms of meditating and being able to find that peace, I love everything you just said, Rabanez. It's definitely worth trying to cultivate that peace. And then sometimes when things are intense, it can be hard. I would hope that these sessions will nudge people's ideas or ways they think about their mind more towards, hey, I'm going to go into the peace and I deserve the peace. But yeah, always being understanding and kind to ourselves. And as Lou said, supportive and kind to each other. Yeah, we live in a wild world. However, the metaphor that I shared of going up into space, looking at things from a extended perspective, I hope that we can give ourselves a bit of time in that. Oh, my headset just to tell me I need to turn the lights on. I was going to say, yeah, time imagining to step away from things to be able to cultivate that peace. The more we do that, the more we can have that peace that's removed from other things. And I don't want to advocate for us to be removed from the world, but I want to advocate for us to have time where we're removed so that whatever we then choose to do in the world, we're coming from the most empowered, free perspective possible. So just give me a moment to turn my lights on here. Solarpunk, welcome. Good to have you. Does someone maybe want to give Solarpunk a recap of the metaphor and the style of meditation that we did today?
Hey, Creek. Oh. I appreciate the recap.
That was great, Creek. And we actually had quite a lot of time where I was quiet for people to really deepen that stillness. And often I'll say deepen the stillness or go deeper. But today I was more using the words of elevate the mind, like just like a spaceship going up away from the gravity of the earth and going into this sense of weightlessness and ease.
I think it's happening more and more quickly these days, which is another thing to not always like confuse with the negativity out there, that maybe it's just a disruption of the balance in terms of how fast technology allows us to progress and, conceive new thoughts and cherish new memories.
So, all metaphors and feelings pertaining to zero gravity?
Just
And
consciousness boosting.
and we also were talking about how not just that feeling of lightness, but also a shift in perspective. So I described when, if you're walking along a busy street, you imagine a really hustle bustle market. I was thinking of the main shopping street of my hometown. And you could be walking along, I don't know what it's like these days with COVID, but there's people all around you. And your mind had to be noticing where you're walking to not bump into people. And there's just all kinds of stuff happening with all the different people around you. And one of the tallest buildings had a glass elevator on the outside. And I would often take friends on a journey up that glass elevator. And so we'd step into the elevator, and as soon as the door closed, it was a bit like meditation. As soon as you decide to sit and take a breath, it's like there's this gap between all the people out on the street and us being in the glass elevator. But we're still there. They're still right there, right in front of us, walking past. But then as we start to go up the glass elevator, then the people are walking down there. And as soon as you've raised up just one body length, it looks different. Like you're looking at the people's heads instead of looking at their bodies. And instead of like seeing all the stuff that's going on with them, as you go up a little higher, you're just kind of seeing the movement of the group. And then as you go higher, you feel more detached, and it's just this flow. And then as we would go just that little bit more higher, the glass elevator would go above all the buildings on the other side of the mall. And then I could suddenly just see the whole of the city. And to go with the metaphor from our investor this morning in the rocket ship, he went up even higher and could see the whole country. And then he went up higher and could see the curvature of the earth. And so we were thinking of like mindfulness as this perspective change. So as you change your perspective, rather than being bumped around by the hustle and bustle of what's going on around you, or even the hustle and bustle of your own expectations, your own pressure, the own weight on yourself. As you move away from that, there's this expansiveness, this beauty, this peace that you can cultivate in your mind. And as Prabhupada was saying, when intense stuff happens, it might not be so easy to get straight into peace. But if we've practiced it regularly, we've got this rocket ship just sitting there waiting to jump in, then you can go into that sense of awe and beauty in almost any situation. So yeah, that's kind of covers what we did today. And as you walked in, many of us had shared what had happened in our meditation, or the things we appreciated, or our thoughts about the meditation. So, please.
I was just doing a little bit of walking meditation actually outside on the trail, just in half an hour before this. And it's nice, with the occasional exception of people and their barking dogs who are walking past you. But despite that, I'm still congratulating myself for coming back to that mindfulness immediately after walking past somebody or their barking dogs. and reminding myself, I have this power. I can still be mindful of this. So, continuing on that path.
My challenge for you is next time, as the dog's barking, find the peace in the bark.
I will. Attempt to do just that.
I'm looking forward to hearing. Now, I would like to ask everybody, as I share these ideas and these practices, my intention is for perfect peace for you all the time. Total freedom from any of your thoughts or feelings that are not great. Being able to be tranquility and power no matter what's going on. So my question is, from the things that I've shared, do you see that? Do you feel like the practice we did will have taken you there? And I guess the question is, I'm going to be quiet for a minute for people to think about it and envisage from what we did to perfect enlightenment. And maybe you'll be able to envisage that and you're like, oh yeah, this is amazing. I'm going to practice every day. And I'm going to watch the way I think about practice and fine tune it that I'm fully empowered and beautiful. So if you can see that journey perfectly, great, there's no question. But if you try to imagine it and you don't see it awesomely and inspiringly and perfectly and easefully, that's what I want to hear. I want you to hear how else you'd see it, or how you'd ask to make it more wonderful, or even don't understand what I meant, or something I said about how shifting our perspective didn't make sense, or what do I mean when I keep saying cultivate. Whatever it is you'd ask to make what I've said more practical, more awesome, more easeful, that's what I want to ask. So I'll give you all just a moment to think about it. Though I'm going to give everyone a bit of thinking time before I ask. So Lou, you wanted to ask something or share something?
Oh, I like to imagine it as a kaleidoscope, or being able to change your lens and how you view the world through multiple little, even cracks, I would say. Because as you grow older, you start to see your crow's feet coming in. I like to think of those as little cracks in like the little detail, or I guess a perfect crystal that is you. Those are just your memories kind of impacting you.
Thanks. Monster?
Yeah, so I do a meditation that's sort of similar to to your metaphorical meditation. So usually there's a sensation associated with your feelings. So, for example, maybe you're. Oh, 1 second. Someone's knocking on my door. Sorry about that. And so what I'll do is I'll try to detach from whatever negative feelings I have by first thinking of the actual reason for it. So if I had a bad day, let's say someone cut me off in traffic or something like that, and so maybe I'm dwelling on it or whatever. I'll also try to sense where I'm feeling it in my body, and so I'll visualize myself in black space, and I'll see the feeling as like a space on my body where I feel it. And I'll just imagine that it falls away, like there's some force pulling it away from me, and sort of just letting it fall off into the void and just disappears. So it's sort of a similar thing where there's just one more step where you're actually associating the bad day at work or whatever, attaching it to the feeling in your body and just letting it go. And that's how I kind of find space from negativity and just everyday annoyances or whatever. That's sort of my trick.
Thanks.
Not that that's better. Not that that's better though. I should probably add that it's very subjective. Each person's going to have their own tricks they might try. That's for them. But because my mind wandered before, it has nothing to do with their abilities as a speaker. So I just wanted to add that.
Thanks for clarifying. I definitely didn't feel like that because I don't do a metaphor meditation every time, and definitely sometimes talk about body awareness and relaxing the body. So I like to think of all these different tools are beneficial at different times. Some tools will be more beneficial more often. Some tools will have an element of something that might misguide. But I think even the most purely perfectly enlightened person will still have breathing meditation and kindness meditation and awareness of their body and being able to do different things with it. So all of these different ways of thinking about our consciousness, it's like an artist who has more tricks up their sleeve, or a mechanic with more tools. Um, so I wanted to clarify. You called this meditation a metaphor meditation. Sometimes I'll actively take people on a journey. Imagine you are in the rocket ship and it's taking off. I mean, I haven't done a rocket ship meditation before, but I'll take people on a walk through the forest and out onto a lake. And then we feel the peace of the water, and we actively work with the meditation. Or we'll go onto a mountain and we'll become that massive unshakableness. So when I say metaphor meditation, that's generally what I mean, where we're actively really going on the metaphor. My intention for today was to set the scene with the idea of weightlessness and the idea that when we go into stillness meditation, things become more awe-inspiring. And so the actual practice I was trying to guide today was being in the breath and being peace and weightlessness and ease. But yeah, I think as this points out, that the mind is so wild. You can visualize things, you can think about things, you can focus on things, you can be stillness, you can just breathe. And every little nuance in what you do with it is going to get different results. When it comes to feeling into your body, you could attach the thing that's made the feeling and let it go. You could feel it and just relax the body. You could feel it and then trace the thought and then see what was the attachment or expectation or attitude I had that made that thought happen, and then transform that. Like, there's so many different things we can do with our awareness as we watch into our own mind. And some days just letting it go would be the perfect thing to do. Some days looking at, oh, what's the reaction that I had? And what would I choose to have as a better reaction as my future? That might be the practice that would have more help in the long run. Sometimes just feeling the body and letting the body relax is important. I had a few companies ago, there was some things going on that had made me angry. And I would get into work and I'd be angry, and work would be, there had been some lies and some lack of appreciation. One of the mornings, as I was walking down the hallway into the office, I noticed that my chest was really tight, and I tried to relax it. I didn't think about where it was coming from. Normally, I like to really mindfully look at all the underlying stuff, but at that time, I just wasn't in the space to do that. I just tried to relax my chest. It didn't really help, but the next day, as I was walking in, I noticed it again, tried to relax some more, and it helped a bit. And after about a week of doing that, as I was walking into the office, I was able to just totally let that relax. And it changed my whole state of mind. It like automatically brought this peace and ease back into my day and made my whole work experience much better for months. That one transformation carried over. So yeah, different ways of working with your awareness and different practices will work at different times. And some of them will work immediately. Some of them will be more of a long-term investment and change. Some of them will, let me think of an example where it seems helpful straight away, but might not be helpful. I'm sure many of us have seen attitudes people have. Maybe someone says, oh, things just happen in threes. Things just come in streams of threes. And then someone's like, oh yeah, it's okay. It's just the randomness of the universe that happens in threes. Maybe that sounds absurd to you. It was a common belief in the city I grew up in. And it's not true. It might be a soothing thought, but it's not how the world works. And similarly in different spiritual practices, if you look carefully, there's elements that aren't helpful, and there's elements that are helpful, and there are elements that are wonderfully helpful. So I think we just watch closely whenever you hear about people's mental ways they deal with things, and find the stuff that's most liberating and most empowering. And
I think there's
don't
one
think,
thing that we could all always agree on, though.
what's that?
I feel like that would just be accepting peace first. Like, if the whole world just accepted peace to begin with, you know, that'd be pretty great.
Are you talking world peace, or are you meaning peace within ourselves?
I guess one and the same, you know, how Buddhism goes, but more specifically with the outside world, if we all took the time and effort to do what you did and literally physically manifest peace, it sounded like, from within yourself, then maybe that improved your situation enough to talk about it here. It's very motivating that you're able to share all these little victories that not all of us are wise enough to kind of see in ourselves. So thank you for sharing.
It was a sort of a meta practice, right?
Always.
I wasn't thinking about compassion or loving kindness at all at that time. I was literally just feeling these muscles and just letting them relax. But I've definitely seen
Alrighty.
people who turn to loving kindness as a way to relax their body and to create mental wellness. 100%. But the example I gave, it wasn't. This is what I was saying to Monster. Like, there are so many different approaches that work at different times in different ways.
Yeah, like the hypnotic self-induction. So it was basically more of a hypnotic self-induction than there weren't any meta feelings involved.
Yeah, even then I wouldn't have thought of it as hypnosis either. I was like walking into the office ready to start work. It was literally just these muscles here, just letting them relax, which you could say is similar to some of the hypnosis inductions, but I wasn't doing any countdowns or any visualizations. It was just
Oh,
this
it was
bit.
just the relaxing of the chest area. That's
That's
all.
all I did. Walking into the office, ready to start work, angry at people. Oh, I'm going to relax my chest because I know that feeling this tight not good for me. And a week of that was actually really helpful. I'm sure if I'd sat and meditated and did something deeper, that it could have done something better. But at that time, I didn't have the time to do it or the headspace to do it. And all I had was just relax.
You unlocked like a cheat code.
Or the
Well, I hope that
parasympathetic
everything we
system.
do here is a cheat code. And the one I'm saying now, I don't think is the greatest cheat code. The thing Monster said, I'm sure is better. But in that day, that was the thing that helped. I think just letting things go and noticing in the mind what's attached to the feeling and letting it go is wonderful. I would say that um, also then looking at what was behind that and then re-engineering that may be more helpful at other times. Like there's different ways of working through your consciousness that are going to help in different times. And ultimately, I hope each of us is thinking, how do I engineer my consciousness to be as always good as possible? You know, the Eightfold Path is like right speech or right action. That right speech or right action or right intention, that's the English translation that's popular. In some languages, it's the always works out speech, or again and again is good action. So how do we train our mind as much as possible that in every situation, every part of you into the future is this enlightened being? When you're hearing different techniques or thinking about your own technique, I hope that will be your guiding light. Moving towards you being as empowered and wonderful, and not just having tools that will help at the harder moments, but training yourself that there aren't the harder moments, that you are this enlightened being that can cruise through anything and everything. That's what I hope will kind of guide us.
Well, I think it's amazing in general that we could learn all this wisdom from you just through words, just through our computers.
It's so wild that we're here around the world, but we're actually sitting together.
Yeah. And it's nice that, I guess more specifically, the educational benefit of a place like this is so valuable. You
So
almost,
I
The new
mentioned
modern
before,
era.
Agora, is that the Greek center of learning?
Agoras were
No.
just public places where everybody gathered, usually like the shopping centers and the bathhouses where they all sort of met in the middle. And people would gather there, and the philosophers and other people would talk and have debates and such, and just in the centers of those areas of commerce.
Mm.
yeah, there's a lot of those in VR chat. They're called public or private.
Something I wanted to share. I mentioned look at different practices and be very careful which ones or which aspects of them will be more helpful and which won't.
I'm
Throughout
sorry,
my,
you're getting a little. Your microphone's starting to fade out a little for me.
let me try and fix it.
You sound fine on this end.
Yeah, I was going to say sounds fine unless you're talking about sort of the click at the end of his voice.
Is that better?
That's
Oh
much
yes,
better,
that's much better.
actually.
Excellent. Thanks. So, in my life, I've been practicing for almost 30 years. And over those times, I think I have found some practices that are profoundly good. I've tried to explore many different lineages of meditation and self-training, of coaching, of business, many different religions and psychology. And I like to think that I found a lot of the greatest practices. And you might have noticed I like to pay really close attention to the subtle differences between how each practice is done and the impact of them. But I definitely don't want to claim that like I'm wise or that the stuff I'm saying is optimal. During
I
those 30
feel it's
years,
learned though,
yeah, but,
and you were able
thank you,
to present it in a way that shares with all of us very efficiently
thanks.
and effectively.
But I want to make the point of my story is yes, I think I've learned some stuff that's great. But during that journey, going to all those different places, I have taken on some practices which were terrible for me. The teacher might have said it in a very convincing way, or some metaphor about the universe or some deity that kind of reached me that time, that I then had some way of thinking which was harmful. And it might have taken me quite a while before I noticed the harm and like removed that practice and then maybe hopefully rebuilt back to the level of ease or empowerment I was at beforehand. And so as I'm teaching, I definitely am not certain that every part of what I'm saying is optimized in alignment. I've tried to, but I would love to hear any time that you see some part of what I said that was less liberating. Or if there's another practice that's more liberating and more empowering, I know that there's more out there to learn and that as a community we can have more of these skills. So thank you for saying that I have wisdom to teach. But I'm also very humble to know that, oh yeah, I'm the most humble in the universe. Sorry, I meant to say I'm very aware. I'm very aware to know that I have been misled, and I'm being very careful to try and have my guard to look carefully which parts of the practices are helpful or not. And I hope
No
together
worries,
as a
Neo.
team we can help be that filter to only let the best, most true, most helpful parts through and amplify them and bring in more amazing stuff into our collective practice. Monster, thank you for sharing the practice of feeling into the body and releasing. Look at the whole
Sure.
thing that inspired and took us on. I just want to say welcome to the person who just walked in. Oh, he's going to go listen behind me.
I
I
had
can
someone
see you.
explain to me that my, I guess,
Hey,
talking to
welcome.
people
It's
is a
good to
bit
have you
like,
here.
hi.
Just before Solarpunk arrived, about 5 people joined us and then left because we were mid a topic. And then I noticed that we finished and I was like, hey, welcome, Solarpunk. So I think I really want to try to be more welcoming to people as they arrive. Hey, we're just talking about transforming our minds and awareness and empowerment. Geeknificent, you've got a comment or a question?
My first time joining on Solarpunk here, I feel like maybe some people are leaving out of respect rather than um anything else, because my first time here I had joined and I realized that you were in the middle of a session and I felt it impolite or disrespectful to intrude on that, so I had taken my leave.
Maybe we need some like flashing sign at the stop saying, please stay. Or I don't know if you've ever seen those Buddhas in like Vietnam, where they have like
No, but that's
the
what they do in
multicolored
Footer.
lights swirling around his head. Just something to be a little more playful, because I definitely want everyone to stay and feel more interested in learning and engaging than, yes, I want this to be like sacred and enlightening and the most awesome thing ever, but I want it to be for everybody and to be playful.
Right.
But Magnificent, thank you so much for sharing your perspective, and I'm glad you came back. Thank you for coming back.
Of course, I'm here to, further my spiritual health just as much as anyone else here is.
Awesome.
I'm sorry. I saw your microphone light up and I thought you were attempting to say something, but then it cut out. So.
I was about to say, seeing as half the people here have joined since we had the meditation, I would like to guide another meditation.
Okay.
Always enjoy more meditations.
So seeing as halfway through the last one, Lou felt the urge to check their email, I'm going to aim this meditation at them and hope or try to shape it in a way that it's compelling and powerful and awesome for everybody. So
Alright, I
everyone
think I'm
notice
ready.
your state of mind and just think, I'm setting aside some time to really train myself. Everybody think that. Setting aside some time to really train myself. Take a deep breath, but a strong one. Catch your mind with the breath. And so now you're noticing your mind. And we could go into peace or calm, or we could go into love, or we could go into being empowered. We could go into anything. But I just want you to ask yourself, what could I practice right now which would be really helpful for me? And then I invite everyone to close their eyes if they're not yet closed. And we're only going to do this for a few minutes to make every breath precious. Each breath you take, let yourself imagine or feel or be the feelings and the ideas that would be so helpful for you. And if the idea is already clear, I just invite you to go into that wildly more powerful. Imagine if all the enlightened beings in the universe were right there helping you do it better. But if your mind's wandered or you didn't come up with a good idea, let me give you some suggestions. Perhaps you want to sit with the idea that your thoughts and feelings work really well for you. Perhaps you want to feel beautiful inner peace. Perhaps you want to meditate into the idea that you're patient and calm and kind to everybody. Perhaps you'd like to meditate that you watch your feelings and your thoughts and you craft your consciousness in powerful, beautiful ways. So if you're already into that meditation and you're cultivating it, make the next few breaths just profoundly beautiful. Watch how you bring yourself into the meditation. Every second of it is precious. You're giving yourself some time to fill your life with peace, confidence, maybe completely changing how you think about your mind. Your mind is always kind to you, always helpful for you. Any thoughts or feelings or practices that don't serve you, you just see them from a distance. You let them go. And you always purify yourself, empower yourself. So for the last minute of this meditation, just go back to the idea, practicing, cultivating what is most helpful for you. And each breath you take, just let yourself feel it more, be it more. And imagine if whatever positive ideas or thoughts or feelings you just had, imagine if you mastered them and they were there to help you forever. Imagine how good that would feel. And each breath you take, just let yourself feel how good that would feel. Feel it more, then you'll feel it more beautifully. Then you'll feel it more fully. And I want you to finish this meditation in a way that's fun. Maybe give yourself a hug. Maybe give yourself a high five. Maybe put a big smile on your face, or a little smile on your face. Maybe a little chuckle. Maybe strike a pose. Meditation is enlightening and profound and sacred and playful and part of every moment of our lives. I don't have a right hand, so I can't see the time. Can anyone tell me the time?
9:49. Okay, for you. What's your UTC?
6:49 here. Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Great. So we have about 10 minutes. I invite everybody to look around, look at each person, think about what you could learn from them or teach them, or how you could care for them or befriend them. And then let's all come up to the Enlightened Being together. So as we look at this Enlightened Being, I want you to know that your consciousness is enlightened. Yes, there might be layers and thoughts and feelings that get in the way at some time. But when you're mindful, when you're present, when you're easeful, there's enlightenment. Some people believe that infinite love and kindness is already within you. Some people believe that it needs to be practiced. But either way, at the very least, the seed of infinite love is within you. So as we bow to the Enlightened Being, we're going to bow a few times. And I want you to find the Enlightened Being inside yourself. Empowered to be ease, clarity, and strength at all times. Mindful to notice your thoughts, your feelings, your mind. But more than that, just like someone who's able to look at a room carefully, they can clean the room and make it more beautiful. You're able to observe your mind and make a whole self, to let your enlightened self shine through at all times. So as we just keep bowing, find that enlightened you inside yourself. Just a couple more bows, slow, deep bows. Feel that goodness in yourself. Be that enlightened self. And next I want you to turn to somebody and see the enlightened being inside of them. And as we bow to each other a few times, keep looking them in the eyes. And just honor the enlightened being that's growing inside everybody here. And then as they keep bowing, as you keep bowing, let yourself feel them respecting and seeing the enlightened being inside of you. And just look around at everybody here. And as each one of us leaves, I'm going to invite you to turn, look back at the community, look back at the temple. Remember your peak moments from tonight. And as you bow to the temple, strengthen whatever was good for you and carry it with you. I'm going to take a moment to actually think about what are those few things I'm going to really re-emphasize and remember. then we can leave one by one. As soon as you're ready, turn, face the temple. Do you want to bow at the door to the temple? There we go. If you want to go again, you're welcome. Yes, please. Thank you, Creek. Thank you, everybody.
Check.